Peace to all my the people in the house. Peace to all my the people in the house tonight. The Coast Guard, basically, it's the CG-1258 form. So this is about the Coast Guard process, my people. Is the initial process regarding the abandoned vessel. CG-1258. Right now, my peeps. The vessel name. What is your vessel name on your BC? Official number. What is this, my people? With the United States Private Enterprise Free State 407 300 537 7. Now, my peeps, you need a Hall ID number, which is an identification number from your state level. It has 7 digits, and the official number that they're looking for is 7 digits. Now, you have a hauling port, which is where the birth certificate came from. So you would have to look that up on your BC. Who's the managing owner of the vessel? Well, it has to have a legal name, an email address, a telephone number, and that owner should have either a sole owner or part owner. So, is it a vessel of the application? If you go and download the application, it's called CG-1258. That's the application for your vessel. Now, it goes along with all the 46 CFRs. So you may want to go pull up your 46 CFRs to study the vessel. So you have the addresses of the managing owner. You enter the mailing addresses. If it's a physical street address differs from the mailing address, then you enter both. You have names and a social security number or a tax ID number of other owners if they own your vessel. Own an interest in the vessel. If no owners other than the managing owner, leave it blank, which means there's only one owner to the vessel, which is you or your trust. So it's based on your authentication of the BC. If you did but if you authenticated it under your name and said that you own it and it's back in your jurisdiction, then your name goes under as the owner of the vessel. Now, what is the purpose of this application? Well, you check the applicant block to show purpose of the application. If the vessel has never been documented, then you have this to create your maritime lien. This is how you create the maritime lien. The maritime lien is not created through a UCC. Go look it up for your damn self. A maritime lien, you have endorsements. So you have to check the appropriate boxes that indicate all your endorsements that are associated and connected to the vessel. The vessel primary service, select only one service for which the vessel will be primarily used. There's citizenship. The vessel must be owned by a U.S. citizen eligible for endorsements. Sort. Select the selection that describes the type of entity that owns the vessel. Okay? Okay, my people? So, let's keep going. Citizenship. So, you have to be a citizen, and anybody that has a birth certificate has a vessel. In the United States, they're citizens. Individual. So, includes native born and naturalized U.S. citizens. You are native born to the United States of America, or you are native born to the city that you were born in and the state. So, whatever your vessel says, VESSEL is the vessel. Now, you have a government entity. You can include that if you choose to, but you have to pull the application down and start filling it out to understand the application. You have a corporation, some people, limited liability, some people, depends on your status and how you authenticated the vessel. Partnership, corporations qualified under 46 CFR 68.01 or owned by and not for profit oil recovery cooperative. So that is what you're going to really want when you're filling out this application. You're going to want to be owned not by or not for profit, because, you'll see when you fill up the application. Joint venture association, trust agreement. Now, all trustees must be U.S. citizens. If applicable, each beneficiary with an enforceable interest must be a citizen. A list of all trustees except managing owner and beneficiaries with an enforceable interest is required. So basically, if you signed your vessel up and you authenticated your vessel under the trust and that the trust owns the vessel, then you would be filling out this application as a trust agreement. But if you didn't authenticate the birth certificate under the trust, that the trust owns it, and you authenticated it under your name as the owner, then you do not deal with a trust agreement at all. Now, certification. So there's a certification. The law provides severe penalties for false statements against both the person, including the agents. So you want to be the owner and the agent of this application. So, my people, now they have a vessel name. Basically, you're going to have to pull the application up and you're going to have to look at it, because if you cannot get this application filed through the Coast Guard, then you're just going to have to deal with your certificate of trust and trying to get that pushed through the court system, either with the county clerk or down at probate. But if you can get this application through the Coast Guard approved, the process to go to probate is easier when you have these documents from the Coast Guard. Because remember, the Coast Guard governs the waters. That's the bottom line. So basically, It's called CG1258. You have to download the instructions for the application. And, you know, basically, if you want to really take this into where you really need to be, my people, the um the bottom line to this is that let me get you there. Let me get you there because you got gurus out there that's telling you false information. Now, Peter Polinsky, Peter Joseph Polinsky, guilty of perjury. So, if you put on here and you try to put a fake vessel, meaning a boat that you don't even own, you could end up in prison behind this, like Peter Polinsky. And this is federal. The Coast Guard is federal, my people, and it's the military. The military don't play when it comes to applications and penalties of perjury. So let's go into this next phase. Let me show you something. We're going to pull up, if everybody can pull up right here so you can understand the vessel. You got to follow. You got your computers out? You on them? Well, let's all go to 46 CFR 7.36 trust. Or you're gonna go where we are going is 46 CFR Part 67, documentation of vessels. The instruction how Coast Guard application, there is a government shutdown. Let's move on. I really hope that you people out there in the chat are taking notes. So this is part 67, documentation of vessels. And that's what you have to do. If you have not documented your vessel to the Coast Guard, and if you have documented but you got pushback, then you're going to have to take your vessel as the trust into the county clerk and to probate without the Coast Guard documents. Now, the purpose, and we're reading from 67.1, the purpose, a certificate of documentation is required for the operation of a vessel in certain trades, serves as evidence of vessel nationality, and permits a vessel to be subject to preferred mortgages. So the vessel is a mortgage. Now, where we're at here in 46, okay, 67.36, this is how you prove that the vessel is a mortgage, okay, and that the vessel, now, you have to study the definitions because the definitions are telling you everything. Acknowledgement. You have to read what acknowledgement means. Okay. You would have to also read any attestations. You would have to read about what a captured vessel is. And a captured vessel is a vessel which has been taken by citizens of the United States during a period of war and is thereafter condemned as a prize by a court of competent jurisdiction. Now, certificate of documentation means Form CG 1270 when issued by Director National Vessel Documentation Center. That is the Coast Guard. You have to be down and signed up with the Coast Guard, your vessel. Now, the Coast Guard is going to say, A birth certificate is not a vessel, but according to 46, what we're in, CFR, the vessel is a mortgage. You are a mortgage. Citizen, unless expressly provided otherwise, means a person meeting applicable citizenship requirements of sub C of this part as United States citizen. Okay, you have commandment, means the commandment of the United States Coast Guard. Documentation officer means the Coast Guard official who is authorized to process and approve applications made under this part and record instruments authorized to be filed and recorded under this part. Documented vessel. This is what you really need to understand. Means a vessel which is the subject of a valid certificate of documentation. The certificate of birth is a certificate, it's a vessel, but you have to prove it. Endorsement means an entry which may be made on a certificate of documentation and which, except for a recreational endorsement, is conclusive evidence that a vessel is entitled to engage in specified trade. Aren't you in trade every day? Everything you do is trading. Now, they have exclusive economic zone, they have fisheries, they have fortified vessels, means a vessel which has been adjudged fortified by a federal district court to the federal government of the United States for a breach of its laws, or which has been fortified under an administrative forfeiture action to the federal government of the United States for a breach of its laws. Now, you would have to go into this and read because it's a lot of definitions for you to understand what the vessel really is. So, National Vessel Documentation Center means the organization unit designated by the commandment to process vessel documentation, transactions, and maintain vessel documentation records. The address is National Vessel Documentation Center, 792 T.J. Jackson Drive, Falling Waters, West Virginia, 25419. And the telephone number is 800 799 8362. There you go, my people. So, the hull and the superstructure of which are constructed entirely of new materials, or which is constructed using structural parts of an existing vessel, which parts have been torn down so that they are no longer advanced to a degree which would permit them to use in the building of a vessel. You would have to go to the application to understand what I just said. So you have officer in charge, you have a person, you have to understand what a person is regarding maritime, because this is a maritime lien that you're trying to perfect. Registration means a certificate of number issued pursuant to rules in 33 CFR Part 173, a record under the maritime laws of foreign country, or a certificate issued by a political subdivision of a foreign country. So we come into 33 So to all this right here, issuing authority, how to operate, and basically if you control everything and all that shit, how the vessel operator means the person who is in control or in charge of a vessel while it is in operation. Outboard. You have the outboard owner. Owner means a person other than a secured party having property rights of vessel subject under a lease not intended as security. So, per association, joint stock associative of any of them. In Appendix A of this part itself, and a numbering system has not been approved. Means a state of the United States, the District of West Virgin Islands, and any other territory or possession of the United States. State of principal operation means the state of whom the year. It's all about you how learn how to operate your vessel. So they consider you incompetent because you don't know how to operate your vessel. Means every description of watercraft or other artificial contrivance used or capable of being used as a means. The certificate of title is a vessel, straight up. So, you have exemptions. What is this bullshit? These Negroes, they know that I'm online right now. Who is this? Yo. Do you know that I'm doing a live right now? I can really full legit on our state. Wait. Well, somebody just texted me. Got something to show you. I created a system so now on the birth certificate and exposed to everything I know. It in to the IRS. So they already know who I am. They got my trust, everything. They even got my fingerprints. So, nobody can fuck with my estate. My fingerprints are there for the estate. I'm the executor, I'm the trustee, everything. So I'm glad that you text me with that. The ledger, yeah, we know about the ledgers, but you need to have the Coast Guard process. The Coast Guard process is the initial process for the birth certificate. So, this shit is real. Now, you have a vessel number required. So, the authentication that comes from the state, there's a 7-digit number on your authentication top sheet. The top sheet is the vessel number. So, okay, it has a number issued on a certificate of number by the issuing authority in the state of principal operation. I just told you. So if you authenticated your birth certificate and the state sends you back your authentication, now it has been it's been indexed back to you into your jurisdiction, and it has a number on it. It's 7 digits. That is the vessel number. The number is displayed as described in 173.27. This section does not apply to a vessel for why the issuing authority in the state of principal operation. So this right here proves that the vessel, the certificate of birth, is, so it says reciprocity. When a vessel is numbered in a state, it is deemed in compliance with the numbering is operated. You have to operate until you come back in and rebut the record. Now, Section 12302D of Title 46 United States Code states when a vessel is removed to a new state, principal operation of the number issued by the original state for 60 days. So, if we go back, my people, register person operate a vessel 2.21 is carried on board in such a manner that it can be handed to a person authorized under 17.23 to inspect it. So if we grant certificate or lease or agreement required. So to any federal, state, or local law enforcement officer for inspection at his or her request. Up how to operate your vessel, which means that the vessel is everything. You're moving through the waters. So you have a contents report. You have where to report, to where to submit the report. You have issue of certificate of number. So the owner of a vessel to which 173.11 of this part applies and for which a certificate of number is required may apply for that certificate to the issuing authority for the vessel's state of principal operation listed in Appendix A. Part. So if we go to Appendix A, it has the 50 states. So you have to choose one of the 50 states of where your certificate, your vessel, is docked. So, it's a lot of reading, my people, but you need to pull down the application. If you pull the application down for the Coast Guard, if you pull this application down, and the application number is, if you pull the application down, you can, start to understand some shit. So basically, citizenship requirements, vessel documentation, 46 CFR 67, documentation of vessels. That's the code of the federal. We have subpart C, citizenship requirements for vessel. Remember, the vessel is the certificate of title, the birth certificate. You have 46 CFR Part 67, subpart C, citizenship requirements. Basically, if you start from 46 CFR Part 67, the basics of definitions to understand how to operate the vessel that you're going to have to do when it comes to with just reading, because it's a lot of reading. Code of Federal Regulations. So the Coast Guard is coming from the Code of Federal Regulations. You cannot file a maritime lien on a UCC 1 or on a financing statement, period. Because a maritime lien is based off of a whole different structure. So you see how they fucking with my life. So a certificate of title versus a vessel. So basically, to move on water, Coast Guard, they say registration not issued by the NVDC. Okay, that's the Coast Guard, the NVDC. Now, liens and mortgages, legal lien may exist on a vehicle, but not a maritime lien. So, a certificate of title only proves ownership of the vehicle or a federal maritime lien or official vessel number in the Coast Guard system. See, that is where you're going to have to prove that the certificate of title, the birth certificate, is a vessel because, you know, this concept legal or sovereign number is a whole number. I can file a maritime lien on it. But you can't file a maritime lien in the UCC. We've talked about the person that comes on, the man that comes on every Monday and Wednesday on UCC. He mentions in his UCC of a maritime lien for $9 billion. That's wrong because it tells you that you cannot put a maritime lien on a UCC. Now, some people are buying boats and they're making that the vessel to get a vessel number to go down to the county clerk to file their certificate of trust because they're turning people away down at the county clerk for lack of all the right paperwork. So, I don't know. People got to get it together. You know what I'm saying? People got to get it together. It's not a vessel. Maritime law applies only to actual watercraft. Legal claims like maritime liens, documented vessel, they say that the birth certificate is a state document issued by statistics. That is so true. Then that means that they're lying to everybody. There's just read legal claims like maritime liens require federally documented vessels. If the birth certificate would be on your vessel, they're lying to you. Okay? Have no legal standing. So, you know, these people, so legally and factually, you cannot vessel maritime law. Here's a careful explanation. The term vessel includes every description of a watercraft other than a seaplane of transportation on water. Key points: must be physical, must be capable of navigators, yachts, etc. What is a piece of paper not a navigator? You're going to go in federal court. But you still don't have a maritime lien created. Or you're going to have a maritime lien created. Or you're going to have a case. Everybody knew him as T. Everybody knew him as T. Really understand that. The only thing that you pull down the documents that you need, pay the probate. Pull down the documents that you need, pay the probate. With your trust, with your will. Now the will, with your trust, with your will. Now the will does not have a as a U.S. Department of Transportation U.S. dot registrant. He has his U.S. dot number here as a 1, 2, 5, 6, 7. He has a certificate with filings. So your class is bogus, your paperwork is bogus, you selling people a bunch of bullshit straight up. So that and terminated. So just where he was born is okay. So he put down, put it down as administrative executor, and he's the acknowledged his estate. So 2011, send that shit out. You know, he didn't send it out to the registrar of vital statistics because they say that on the UCC finance statement you send the acknowledgement statistics as a debtor. So he as a last will and testament. And he says the claim of lien is a maritime lien for $9 billion. That's some bullshit. He doesn't have the number up. If you go to the Coast Guard website and look up his name, there's no lien. Transportation U.S. registrant certificate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, the UCC addendum filed in Superior Court, Newton County, Georgia. He did that. And then he did a certificate of title, and he has an international UCC filing and treaty in Washington State. So, you do need a will. And the will does have to go on the UCC, but you also need to put the will if you can get it in a public record. Yes, the UCC is a public record. So you can upload that will into the public record of the state of the UCC. You can also go down to the county clerk and file a UCC boat if you have a car, any type of property. You can go down to the county court and file a UCC financing statement to get the will on file. So it's a lot of things that you're going to have to do. Fingerprints, most felons can't to handle their estate. So, or you know, no probate, no tax refund, no probate, no big tax refund. So I don't know what y'all people are doing out there, but here in the United States Private Enterprise Free State, you got to get with it. You process. If you don't process, if you don't have trust up, you have a trust to do anything. Your trust is that the big tax refund go to all those classes that need. Trust is that the big tax refund go to all those classes that need. You are gonna ante up your paperwork. Are gonna ante up your paperwork. Up your paperwork. And now, if you need some of these classes, if you need 77. And we can most definitely 7. And we can most definitely get you on the right, because a lot of information that's going around is that is really confused. A lot of information that's going around is that is really confusing people. You know, it's all good in the hood. It's all good in the hood. But chat sometimes discourage you from a certain process because it was programmed to tell you that bullshit. So I may have one more little um tidbit of information for you people out there. Of, of, of situation that you in. You know what I'm saying? People. What do we got going on, my people? It is right here. New vessels, first time documentation. Federal documentation required for CG 1258 submission to NVDC. Then you have evidence of origin, helps establish the vessel's history for title transfers or lien recording. So, the difference between builder certificate and bill of sale, that is the problem. On that application, my people, how do you prove a bill of sale for the vessel that's a birth certificate? Now, they have a builder certificate. That's the first one. So it's builder or shipyard, issued by the builder, which is you, or the shipyard. The shipyard would be vital statistics. Purpose. So the ownership is your authentication from the state. Required for COD. Yes, for the first time documentation. So that's first time documentation, my people. Legal certificate of documentation can serve as proof of ownership in case of disputes. Enables vessel to be mortgaged or used in commercial operations. A builder certificate is the first proof of ownership of a vessel issued by the builder and is essential for it allows the first owner to and hailing part-time lien on your vessel. There you have it. So the people that's going around telling you that there's lien on you is a liar. And the only way you can find out that this is wrong, LLC, that's an example. Builder address 123 Marina. Builder address 123 Marina Way, Norfolk, Virginia. Vessel information, the vessel name, Sea Explorer. Vessel name, your name, the whole identity. They have 5 numbers, and then another 3 letters. And recreational vessel. Now, if it's a mobile, you have to proof of sale. It's a mobile. If it's recreation, prove that the birth certificate is a vessel, my people. Please tell me, how are you going to prove this? Okay. So, declaration of builder. This is to certify that the above described vessel has been constructed under the supervision of XYZ Shipyard LLC and a, a task that you must start. So, so we already got a couple of gooms. So y'all need to really wake up, smell the coffee.